Yo, what is good, YouTube? It's your boy Playmaker. It's a youngin' back on the turn. It's good to be back. I know I've been gone for a long time. I just been on my grind, joining the military and everything. But I just want to make an announcement though. Your boy is back, and I am joining the United States Army. So I will be enlisting on March the 2nd, and I'm happy about that. So I will be coming back to the YouTube grind, but mainly when I be doing my YouTube videos, I'm gonna start changing up I'm gonna change up the channel. I'm making like more like about like military stuff, about like passing the AS valve on like military branches and stuff like that. Instead of having gaming, but I mean I still be no live streaming gaming from there, but I'm gonna kind of make my channel, make my content more about military, but it's good to be back. This is just like a get back together right here. But I'll be joining the military. I'll be joining the United States Army, and I'll be joining on my birthday. But basically, really, what I wanted to talk about in this YouTube video, I'm gonna talk about why I switched from the Air Force to the Army. Okay, so I always wanted to join the Air Force and everything. And I had the Air Force recruiter, but the Air Force recruiter I had he wouldn't really work with me. Like the Air Force, honestly, like bro, it's very picky. Like it's hard to get in. It's hard to get in the Air Force. They want you to score like very high. They want you at least score. They want you at least score like a 50 or higher to get in the Air Force. They very picky. I had a recruiter. He would really help me. I would ask him for study material stuff. He just didn't really work with me. Then he was ghost me on his phone. I could show you how to text message and stuff. Like he just wouldn't really work with me. So so one day I was just like, you know what? I'm going to army. I'm gonna join the army. So I went to my computer, did some research and everything. I had went on army.com. I had typed in my address and my phone number, and then boom, the next morning they had sent me a text message on my phone, and I got in contact with the recruiter, and then boom, when I got that message from the recruiter, basically that's how we had connect, and we had went from there, and then I came to the army recruiting office, we met from there, and I mean when I first walked in there, I was talking to recruiters, I would ask them why did y'all join? I was like asking the recruiter good questions and stuff, and I asked those type of questions. And then after that he was like, you want to take a practice? And I was like, I ain't sure about that. Like I don't know for real about that. But so I made my mind up to the practice test. Boom, passed it with a 42. So I passed that. So after I passed my practice test, my recruiter was happy and everything. And she was just like, well, you scored 42 on the practice test, so I mean you ready to test. So so from there, um I studied about like 2 weeks, and then after I did 2 weeks of studying, I took the podcast test, and basically the podcast is just like the ASVAB. If anybody don't know what the podcast is, cause I know more people, who probably like older, probably more familiar with the ASVAB instead of the podcast, because the podcast it's kind of something new. I think they came out with the podcast actually like in 2015, I think. That's when they came up with the podcast. But before it was always the ASVAB. But I took the podcast test, and basically you don't know what the podcast test is. The podcast is the same thing as ASVAB. It's basically the same thing. But with the podcast, it's 10 sections, and basically with the podcast you take the podcast test in your recruiter office, or you take the podcast at home, because your recruiter would give you a paper with a code on it, and basically you can get on your own computer and then take tests at home, and then when you have your code, you can access it on log in your computer and take it from there and stuff. But just because it's a at home test, do not cheat on the podcast because if you cheat on the podcast, you gotta take a verification test. So do not cheat on the podcast. So just because it's a little test you take at home, it's not proctored and everything. You know, you got your phone. You probably I'm finna cheat right now. Don't do that, bro. Cause you gotta take a verification test. So don't do that, fam. Do not cheat. So and basically with the podcast test, it's not when you taking it like it won't be time, but with the podcast test, you have 48 hours to take it. They give you 48 hours to take it. But when you taking the regular ASVAB, that's when you go to Melts and stuff, and you take it on on the computers, and it's time for every section of every part of the ASVAB, basically. But when you taking the podcast, it's not time, but you got to complete the test in 48 hours. So so I took the podcast, I scored a 50 on that, and then boom, from there I had to take the verification test. Now see the verification test, bro. I mean you don't really gotta stress about it. Don't stress about the verification test. Don't stress about the only thing that you do with the verification test. You just remember the same question that you picked on the podcast. That's basically the only thing I do. So boom, I took the verification test because I took the podcast on Monday because when I first took it, I was in the recruiting office. When I first took it, I did my first 5 sections. I did my first 5 sessions at the recruiting office, and then and I had 5 sessions left. Then my recruiter, she was like, "Oh, you taking too long." So she gave me the paper with the code on it, and I finished my podcast at home. So so I did the rest of my 5 sessions at home, and after I finished the podcast on the computer, I tell my recruiter, I was like, "Yo, I'm done," and then she hit me up in 15 minutes and say, "Hey, congratulations, you passed with a 50." But and I'm gonna tell you like a little secret with that podcast. So basically, you taking that podcast and they only when you taking the podcast test and it only gives you 5 sections. I mean, it is what it is. You felt it. That's all I can tell you. You felt it because when you taking that podcast, you're supposed to get 10 sections, but you taking a podcast and they gave you all 10 sections, you passed it, you good. You scored at least a 50 or higher, like you good, you passed it. But the thing that you gotta worry about is verifying your score. But verifying your score, it's not really a problem. Taking the verification test, the only thing that you gotta be worried about taking the verification test, it's a 10% chance that you had to take the real test. And I don't know why MEPS do that. It's like a little survey thing they do, but basically when you're taking the verification test, it's a 10% chance that you had to take the real test over it. And if you taking the verification test and say when you take the test you start like picking like different answers, you start picking different answers off of your podcast test, then basically your computer will regenerate and you'll have to take the full ASVAB again. So that's information about the podcast and the verification test. I'm doing all that in this one video. So how I took my podcast on Monday and I finished it on Monday night. She gave my score and I passed my podcast with a 50. So from 4 days later, I took my verification test on a Friday. So I took on a Friday my verification test. But I don't know if anybody live in Georgia or anything. Wherever you live at and wherever you live at, if you have if it's like a college in your state or city and like if they do ASVAB test and a verification test in there, then basically you wanna then basically you wanna contact that college and just take that and take your ASVAB or verification test there, because a lot of time when you take the verification test at Melts, because my recruiter was telling me this. A lot of time when you take the verification test at Melps, the system be down, and they'll make you take the whole ASVAB again. So because when I took my verification test, I took it at this college, and I stay in Georgia. So I took it at Georgia Military College. I don't know if y'all familiar with that college or anything. I'm talking to everybody, around the world. So I don't know if y'all know what Georgia Military College is, but I took my verification test there. And I took my verification test. I finished it like in 10 minutes. Like all the questions were the same for my podcast, and it was only 30 questions. And basically with the verification test, it's gonna be like all the sections off the ASVAB, and they mix like everything into like 30 questions. And it's the same question that you had on your podcast. So basically, the only thing gonna do when you take a verification test, when you answer the questions, you're just gonna answer the same way how you was how you got the answer on your podcast. You just gonna do the same thing. So I did my verification test. Boom, passed that, scored the same score, 50. Got the same score. Did like in 10 minutes, and then boom, I did that. And then after that, my recruiter had took me to school. So she took me to school, and then she gave me the army application. But anytime when you get that army application or whatever branch you join, but when they give you that enlistment application, oh, it's official. You feel me in there. So you feel me in. So that's what I've been working on and stuff. So I've been working on that basically. And my recruiter called me today, and I will be enlisting on my birthday, March the 2nd. I will be enlisting. But and I chose the army because the army, I mean, they have more job options. I mean, like I was saying I wanted to do the Air Force, but see, with the Air Force, they very picky. So that's why I chose army basically, and they got more job options. So that's why I chose the army. They got more job options and stuff. And basically, it's very easy to get in. They got the fastest. They ship out very fast too. Like anytime when you pass your test and you complete your stuff at Melts, they gonna it'll get shipped out like in a month, fast. So that's another reason I had switched branches, and I'm really glad that I did that, because I was trying to get in the Air Force, but I was stressing. I was stressing out. Like trying to get in there, you gonna stress out. Like it's very hard to get in there. Like if I tell anybody what branch to get in, it's the Army or Navy. Now some people do Marines, but Marines, it's not really good military branch. Marines make people crazy. So I would not recommend to do that. They make people crazy. But those are my branches. I prefer the Army or the Navy. And you can do Coast Guard too, but Coast Guard is hard to get in too. Like for the Coast Guard, they want you to score like a 40 or higher just to get in. And then say if you scored it at 40, you trying to go in the Coast Guard. I mean, and ain't gonna be no good job option to get, because that's basically the minimum score they want you to have. So, and then like for the Air Force score is 36 or higher. But on Air Force recruit, the Air Force recruit, they mainly looking for like people who score like very high. And then for the Air Force, like it's very different, because it's people that score like a 50 and they try to go in the Air Force, but when they look at their job options, I mean, it's not really a lot of job options. And then like you scored a 50. I mean, that's a good ASVAB score, but you trying to go in that brand, but not really a lot of job options. But I mean, if you go in the Army with a 50, it's a lot of job options you can do. It's a lot of job options. So that's another reason why I had switched. And then reason number 3, my recruiter, he was horrible. He was a horrible recruiter. Like he was horrible. So that's mainly why I had switched, and I'm happy that I did, and like the process so far, it's going good. It's going very good. Like I'm happy. Like no more stress, and definitely no more studying. Cause oh my gosh, but yeah. So that is why I switched from Air Force to Army. So that's the main reason why. But it's good to be back YouTube. Finna start back the grind. Like I said, we're gonna change the content up. We're gonna be doing some military stuff instead of gaming. But I will, stream gaming from there and there. But mainly my YouTube channel, I'm just gonna do military stuff. But so that's all I want to talk about, and I hope I gave y'all some good information. Y'all comment down. Y'all comment below. Y'all got some questions, or y'all need help like passing the Advil, or you have like questions about branches and stuff like that. I can help y'all out. And in my description, I should have my Snap, my Facebook, and you can hit me up on Twitter. If you wanna, if you feel more comfortable, hit me up on social media, then comment on YouTube. I understand that, so that's why I got it in the description. But that's all I want to talk about, guys. But we finna start at the grind. Peace.